I went into bed at like 8 p.m., read fan fiction until like midnight, and then fell asleep.
Amazing.
How are your dreams, my love? Are you okay?
Funnily enough, I never really remember what I dream, unless it's like an actual like nightmare that fully wakes me up in a panic, which doesn't happen often. Like, that rarely happens. That's the only time I kind of remember what I've been dreaming. Otherwise, I never remember anything.
Do you know that's like
So I don't know what my dreams
a
are like.
neurodivergent thing, is to still have nightmares at like an older age.
Yeah, I need to talk to my therapist, don't I?
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Dungeons and Degrees. My name's Adrian.
And I'm Alex.
And today we have a special guest. Special guest, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Henry, aka Hen. My pronouns are they, he, and I'm one of the people Adrian likes to traumatize over on the Coming Together Naturally podcast.
Yeah, I do be doing that. But isn't that what D&D's for? You know, just trauma, trauma on trauma.
Essentially. I mean, with my backstory, I kind of asked for it, so I can't really complain.
Yeah, no, so I run another podcast on the side. And,
What?
You were there yesterday, like last week.
Yeah, you are also now guest starring on said podcast.
I also traumatized the group.
No, you did a therapy session, and it was very helpful.
Yes, they needed that so badly.
Yeah, we did. We really did.
It was like, this group is falling apart in my hands like shredded chicken, just falling.
And whose fault is that?
Me, I did that. It wasn't all me. It wasn't all me. I just brought a story, and y'all play it out as you wish. And I keep my hands pretty far back until I need to. But when I do something, it's very intentional for the most part.
Would you say that it came together naturally?
Well, right now it seems like everything's falling apart.
Yeah, everything's falling apart. Nothing is coming together.
See, the name's a misnomer.
Oh no, it's a trick.
It's a trick. You thought this was wholesome fun? Nah, we're yelling at each other.
Oh no.
But yeah, so I was asking for, like, hey, would any of my players want to come on my little podcast? And they're like, Henry's like, dude, me. Like, I'm editing this.
Yeah, my head went, at least I'm not editing this.
Yeah, Henry is the other podcast editor, and along with Sabrina, who may be on sooner or later. Definitely, probably.
Yeah, no, but yeah, you said, like, is anybody interested in being on the podcast? I was like, me. So thank you for having me.
Of course. And we're going to talk about a little subject we've talked about before, but in the, from a different angle. Me and Carlos talked about diversity in gaming, more along the lines of race, but we're going to talk a little bit more along the lines of gender and sexuality. So yeah, I think that to start us off, or Henry, do you want to start us off, or do you want me to kind of like, I mean, it's just the same take I did at episode 11.
Yeah, no, I can say, like, part of the reason why I wanted to talk about this is because for the longest time, like, I tried getting into tabletop games, and I was like, this is not for me. At the time, I was still, like, more female presenting, and I was like, I didn't feel welcome as, like, a queer woman into the space. And I kept hearing some stories, and I kept trying a little bit, and I had kind of written it off for me. And it took some time to find, like, good groups and places where I felt safe. And that was part of the reason why I really wanted to be on a podcast, so just coming together naturally to like have even more of that representation out there. Yeah.
From my perspective of like, it was very brief when I understood like how difficult and how kind of individuals who had, were queer would come into a space, because like one of my, like 2 or 3 years ago when I started Curse of Strahd, we're still talking about it. Somebody was like, "Hey, is this a queer friendly campaign?" And part of me was like, I never thought of it like that needed to be said. I just like, hey, this is just a campaign. And I didn't know people were very fucking rude and
Yeah.
misogynistic and just like homophobic. Like that didn't come to my mind when I played a fantasy game. Like, we're here to escape like reality, and they're just there to do a fucking power trip, apparently.
Yeah, because I have been that person who's asked like, "Oh, is this game queer friendly? Is this group okay with queer people?" And every time I've asked, the response has been like, "Oh yeah, like of course." And it's not like they're not outright calling me slurs or whatever, or like throwing me out or anything, but it's still like you feel like this isn't. You still kind of feel like left out, I guess, because they don't really. A lot of times, it's especially like cis straight men who play D&D, and they don't really understand. And then there will be like some jokes that are kind of misogynistic and stuff, and it's just like, yeah, this is still not the space for me. Even though they're like saying that, oh yeah, no, like we're open and like we're cool, and then you realize you're not as cool as you think you are, you know. But yeah, I've been that person who's asked that for games, been like, is this queer friendly?
Yeah. I think I followed up with that message, was like, hey, can you tell me a little bit about what's been like going on in the space, and so I can, one, be more knowledgeable about it, too. But if you need somebody that's like okay with that, yeah, dude, if you just need a bunch of all your friends to just be able to play in a safe space, I could be that person. They never responded. They probably either were worried still, or found a different game, which I hope they found a different game.
Well, I think that's hard because there's a lot to unpack when you start thinking about what it looks like to have like a heteronormative game versus having one that is inclusive. Just things that you say day to day, you're like, oh, if I take that out of my normal lens with all the regular people I talk to, and maybe I surround myself with more traditional presenting and lifestyles or whatever. I don't want to say like lifestyles like that. It's not like that. If you just surround yourself with people who just maybe are not familiar with the change in vocabulary, it's a lot. I can see just in my day-to-day what spaces I inhabit that are very open and friendly and honest and have done some of that work. And then I see spaces that you're like, oh fuck, like maybe we don't say that. And especially working with children, there are a lot of things that just naturally come out from people that you're like, ooh, that I know hurts. Like I know that either through my own experience or with people that I've known and seen. And so, it's not as obvious sometimes as seeing people of color because somebody looks different from you. But it's just like a constant, like, I'm bi in these spaces, right? So I have some identity and I've held some of the I held some understanding of what's going on. And like I even don't feel comfortable completely coming out in spaces. So I couldn't imagine if I don't feel comfortable coming out in spaces and I look like I'm heteronormative and I have an opposite sex partner, I have somebody I look like I fit in, but not feeling like I fit in. it's a constant nagging in your head of like, oh my God, am I going to do something? Am I going to say something? Do they break my trust? And then how do I either live with that, or do I move on from this group and hope that I find somebody better?
Exactly. Yeah.
I just talked a lot. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Okay, yeah.
Oh no, you talked a lot on the podcast.
I just wanted to point out, back to what you were saying, Adrian, that you hadn't really thought about it and wasn't entirely sure how to respond to that question. So a very easy thing for me in spaces a lot of time is simply when people are like, "Are you comfortable sharing your pronouns?" Then immediately, like them asking the question opens up, like, because I'm like, you probably wouldn't be asking if they're not going to care at all, you know. And especially if I see other people have been sharing their pronouns and stuff, that's like an immediate like, okay, this is good. So I remember for Coming Together Naturally, on the like form for the application, one of the questions like, oh, what are your pronouns? And I went like, okay, because I was actually going to message Sabrina as well, being like, is this queer friendly? Is it going to be queer friendly? And then I looked at the application form, and just from that, I was like, okay, cool. We're going to be okay, basically.
The secret symbols of what you have to look for
in
order just to know, you know, on campus, you know, the offices that have the ally sticker, or they have something that you would have the understanding that there is some sort of level of safe space. But have you ever found it looked safe space, but then it turned out to be not a safe space? Do you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, so this wasn't specifically for gaming, but I have seen like queer groups where it's like, oh yeah, like where this is like a safe space or whatever. But then it's been particularly if it's like, oh, this is a safe space for women specifically. But then you go and you realize they're not allowing trans women, for example. And or like even like anybody who's like trans femme. But then obviously like but then they're like wanting people who are trans masculine to like oh, but no, like you're welcome, like you're cool. And it's just like it's I've seen a lot of those spaces specifically that are trying to be like safe for women, but it's essentially just cis women.
Oof. That's a heavy topic.
Yeah, sorry.
No,
but it's the reality of it, because yeah, and I've seen other queer spaces as well. When this was specifically like I found this gaming group in my hometown, and I asked, "Are you okay with queer people?" And they're like, "Yeah, cool." And I also saw that the leader for the group had a rainbow flag on their like profile picture and seemed to be in a same-sex relationship. And so I was like, okay, cool. And again, I very quickly realized, taking part in that group, that okay, yeah, it's a safe space for gay men, gay cis men. It's a safe space for them, but not really. No, like, and again, it wasn't like they were really like rude or like anything. It's just, you know, they didn't really understand everything. There were some. She just wasn't made to feel like, oh, I can truly be myself here without like throwing them off, if that makes sense. Like, yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, there still are even levels of acceptability within communities, right?
Yeah.
We may overall accept the idea of being gay. Okay, you like somebody of your same gender. Sure. We can accept that. That's fine. But then once you start going into what it actually looks like to be a human and how you feel like you are yourself, that becomes a little less understanding, you know?
Yeah.
And how did you ever feel like you were just looking for like your white whale, and like that you could never find a space that was just 100% Henry?
A bit, yeah. And I think specifically for me as well, when I was starting to look for these kinds of groups, a part of it was having heard some stories, but not really a lot. But there was like a part of me that's like, I want to play with gender in a game where I can be like, yeah, I'm gonna be playing a big strong man, like, you know, and like trying to explore in that way. And for the longest time, I didn't think that was actually going to be possible. But then what changed that? I just, to bring the mood up a little bit, I'm going to talk about how I figured out how D&D can be a really good safe space to explore gender. And that was actually when I first started watching Dimension 20's The Unsleeping City. And for the longest time, like I had already kind of written off tabletop. By then, I had tried a bit, and I tried watching Critical Role. Couldn't get into it. I have since been able to get into it. Do not come for me. But at the time I had tried watching Critical Role, I was like, this is not for me. And then one of my good friends at the time was like, no, you need to watch The Unsleeping City. And I was like, no, I'm not interested. They're like, no, you need to watch this. And I was like, no. And then he said, at least the introduction of the first character. And I don't know if you guys have seen The Unsleeping City.
No. I'm finally on track. Look at me. Yay! I can say that
you've seen it. Know. Yeah, Adrian.
Yes. I'm at the 7 right now.
So minor spoilers for The Unsleeping City, but this is literally first episode, first character introduction. It's not that big of a deal, but slight spoilers. But yeah, so the first person we meet is Pete the Plug. And within the first 5 minutes, we learn, very early, we learned that Pete is auntie, has recently recovered from top surgery, and is basically openly trans. And I remember seeing that, and I was like, wait, you can do that in D&D? You can just say you've had top surgery? I was like, oh my god. And I was like, oh my god, I need to watch this and see where this goes. And then I obviously fell in love with Pete. Amazing. And it was just so cool for me to see. And obviously, Ali, who plays Pete, big shout out to Ali, who's also non-binary. And I was like, it gave me a hope that, there is space for me in this community. Because I could see how the other players as well. It was just a cool thing. And specifically in The Unsleeping City as well, I think it's really cool. Because essentially, they're all just people. All the characters are just people. They're human. Just existing as well. With a weird shit going on, obviously. But essentially, they're also just people. And I was like, this is so cool. And then I started watching Fantasy High, which also has amazing queer representation. And that kind of made me realize, oh yeah, no, there is space for me here in this community. And having watched the way Brennan DMs, I felt confident enough to DM myself. So I made my own space as the DM for people that I know to have a queer game. And then I essentially learned I had to go online to find people. So that's what I've done. I went online and I met so many amazing people who are very queer friendly and queer themselves. So, yeah.
And I think that's okay to look and dig, because I know in my podcasting, I know some podcasts that I wouldn't be like, yeah, that's inclusive. I feel 100% okay. Sometimes there are moments of yikes, did you think about that? Or you go and look at the time, because I think the time is also important, that something done in 2013,
yeah,
I think should get a little bit of grace. I don't completely agree with 100% cancel culture. I understand that there's a level of accountability, but to completely cancel something because somebody said something one time, 10 years ago, I think shows that there's a level of scared, right? To change. We can change.
As long as I think with cancel culture specifically, if you can see there's improvement, if you can see they've taken accountability, they've taken the steps to get better, then yeah, even just looking at things from 2018, not that long ago, you can see some things that oh yeah, times have changed, and I wonder what it's going to look like in even 5 more years, we're gonna look back at things that came out now and be like, maybe we should have thought more about this specific thing. But I think it's a good thing that, you know, we're all constantly learning and we're all trying to be better. But I think as well, I think it's good that people are at least trying to be more inclusive, more diverse, having more representation. Even if not everything is 100% perfect, we're going to keep getting better. We're going to be learning from that. And hopefully it will only be better and better. And we'll see even more representation.
In my journey in this earth, I've realized that the things that make me feel the most uncomfortable are usually the things I've got to open up. So I don't know if I've ever talked about my feelings on Sailor Neptune and Sailor Uranus on the Sailor Moon show, but I remember loving Sailor Neptune and being like, oh my God, that's what I want. That's my magical girl. That's what I want to do. And then being quickly like, oh my God, that can't be me because she's gay. I can't be gay. You can't do that. You can't, God forbid you associate me with being gay. And then, you know, as a child thinking that, right? And then growing up and being like, oh, wait, hold on. Let's talk about this. And then realizing what that actually meant for me in my life. And like, hey, you probably like more than just boys. Oh no. And like being able to explore that uncomfortable feeling without completely shutting down has opened up my life to having better relationships and being able to explore things and talk about ways to be on this planet. I mean, there's enough going on. We don't need any extra help of like shutting people down from what they want to do, unless it's like hurting other people or hurting themselves. Like, but if you want to be you, then fucking be you. And you'll be able to find those safe spaces. And if you can't find them, create them. And then just like you're doing, Henry, show other representation and support places that are representing. If they're not perfect, that's great. Okay. It's okay. But there are podcasts that, you know, or there are tabletop games and there are things happening that are representing and making sure they're doing it. Not all, I don't want to adventure zoning beginning where it's all boys. It's a bunch of brothers being together as boys and stereotypical fashion, dick jokes and fart jokes and whatever.
Yeah.
Because girls don't make fart jokes.
Oh, yeah. Never. But jumping off of that, I wanted to also point out like good ways to explore your own gender or sexuality like within tabletop. 2 very good game systems for that is a system called Misspent Youth. I don't know if you guys have heard about that, but where you play teen delinquents, basically. It's a lot of fun. You help create the world together with the game master. It's been a few years since I played this. That was very cool, and that was the first time I was looking at my character sheet, and they have like a space for like gender and stuff, and I was like, I'm gonna put a non-binary here and put they them, and nobody batted an eye, and I was like, okay, cool. And that I don't even remember that much about the specific character or whatever, but I just remember when everybody was referring to me using like they them pronouns, I was like, okay, yeah, no, this is right. And finding that in different games has been really cool, and like playing different genders with different characters and like doing all that exploring, or even with like sexuality. It's such a good way to explore that if you are in a safe space with safe people. But yeah, specifically Misspent Youth and then also Monster Hearts are 2 systems that I think make it even easier to do that than D&D. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's more focused on the social aspect instead of just
fighting. We're gonna fight some monsters, you know?
Yeah. I don't think the way I make this campaign is very heavy on fighting right now.
No, it is not. But it's still very, very good.
Thank you.
But it does feel like even the short stint I played with y'all, it doesn't feel like that's where your players really want to be anyways. They want that more social aspect and less combat heavy. Like, yeah, the combat is there, but it's more about feelings, and that's still a valid way to D&D.
It's also a lot about like identity. I think
Mm-hmm.
especially with my characters going through a very specific identity crisis, very different, not like a gender crisis or sexuality crisis, just like who the fuck am I crisis in general.
Anybody can.
Just a normal
Just a normal quarter life crisis. So yeah, I think identity is a big part of our story.
Yeah, and I think they're just really interested. Like, Adrian, why are you fucking with us? Who's the culprit? What is going on?
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I told
yeah.
them, I think like roughly when I got the position, because I did like a tryout. So it was like, I got a 3-arc story for you. I know where it's gonna end. I know where it's going. But yeah, let's just work around the first arc. And they just want to know. And I told them like, hey, I think that I know it's a little combat dry, but things are gonna happen. So don't worry about it. It's gonna happen.
I think as well that like when combat does happen, it feels more important, if that makes sense. Or like we get even more stressed by the combat. It's like, oh, this is very significant, in a way that in other games that is more combat heavy, like we're just like, okay, yeah, cool, we're in combat again. But here, the few times it has happened, it's been like, oh shit, we're in combat. Like, oh no.
I think like it was the first episode we had combat, correct?
Mm-hmm. Very short.
Right.
Very short.
Short. Very short, very easy. And then they fought something else and they knocked out. And then they fought something else and
we knocked out.
Well, y'all beat this
oh yeah,
group
we did.
they talked it out.
Yeah, we talked. Well, basically, we talked it out, and then we had another big combat where we got knocked out again.
I mean, just like the situations were just like, well, one of them was like, please stop doing this, and then the other one's like, y'all jumped a base? Okay, level 3s. There's a bunch of people here.
Well, listen, mistakes were made, but we learned from it, and we got a lot of information. We genuinely like learned, and the movie, the story moved in a very different way, I think, because of that decision. Even though you were dangling that in front of me, you were like daring me to do that as well. So it wasn't only my fault. Like, how could I not? You just put the option on a silver platter right in front of me. So
look, you said you're interested. I'm gonna give y'all what you want, and if it happens to be behind a bunch of traps and a base and things like that, well, so be it.
I mean, sometimes the rogue's got a rogue. That's what I'm gonna say.
No, I fully appreciate it, but I think that I think I'm starting to get more conscious about the way I play, and including diversity in my NPCs, which a part of me was always like, the barmaid's a woman, the innkeeper's a man, and things like that, and I'm like, hey, I'm like a broken record, dude. And I'm just like, and none of them, all of them are hetero, but I don't play into that. And I'm just like, or they just don't, I'm worried about like what characters I'm bringing. And I'm just like, I should probably put some representation. Just because I don't think about it right away doesn't mean that it shouldn't happen. It should be a more conscious effort. I think similarly to what kind of like you know how Carlos says, like, ask for diversity. Well, if I'm also playing the DM, I should also be putting in diversity. They shouldn't all be like, it's an elven wizard. Like, why can't I have an orc wizard? You know, like, subvert the expectation, I guess. Stop doing the same old basic thing.
Exactly. Yeah. I think on that though
Yes.
as well. I remember I made my backstory and made a few NPCs, and I was like, listen, a lot of these are queer or like use very specific pronouns and stuff. And I was also like, yeah, I don't know, Adrian, how many like non-binary characters you have in the game already, or gender fluid characters, but here are a few.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
I think when we did our first session zero, I'm like, hey, what do you want this character's pronouns to be? And I think that was very important for the backstory, because I think it was very important for you to have, one, representation, but two, have a hand in creating the story as well. Because I'm trying to make sure that y'all have some sort of input, because I think otherwise it's just me blabbing about a story. You know, it's us telling a story together, kind of thing. And I think that's such an important part.
And we do talk about that a lot, even not with the frame of gender and sexuality within the game. Like we talk about that with everything, right? What are you experiencing in your life that maybe you need to experience in the game as a third party, away from it being 100% connected to you? What does that look like in the RPG space? You know, what does your life look like, and what would you like your life to look like? And if you do have an issue, it's not you dealing with the issue, it's your character dealing with an issue. And that can be helpful, especially, you know, we've talked a lot about mental health and all of that too. So taking a second and actually making your character choices or your NPCs intentional changes the game and makes it, I think, a better experience.
Yeah, definitely. I think it is very important to talk about, like, when you go into a new campaign as well. And again, just going back to like how to essentially create a safe space. It's important to have a conversation about like what topics are people comfortable being brought up, or you know, like are we going to be exploring a story of like somebody's trying to figure out like their gender, but there are transphobes in the world and all of that. Like, and that's a story that's been told many times. But is that something that we want to do? Because for a lot of people, that like going through that and like hearing those stories are also important. But that, or do we just want somebody who's like, yeah, I'm queer and we exist and like that's just a thing, and we're moving on, like, you know. And it's important to have those conversations as well, like when you're creating like the safe space, like you need to talk with your players about what kind of space do they want it to be, essentially.
Yeah, I think that's important. Like, are you here to escape, or are you here to tell your kind of your point of view of how things have been and how you've overcome it? Yeah, no, I think it's very important. Oh, I do want to drop this and there is an individual who's ace, but I don't think y'all know who it is yet. Just dropping a little nugget of information.
We love that. We need to see more ace representation. I don't think there's enough of that in general. But yeah. Is this where I plug? This is not a tabletop podcast. It's a horror podcast called The Magnus Archives, where the main character is Ace. Again, it's a horror podcast. A relationship stuff. It's not gonna. It's not the focus. Let's just put it like that. It's not the focus, but it's a very queer. Like when I started listening to it, I didn't expect it to be like. I knew it was kind of like queer friendly. I knew it wasn't like horrible, but I was just like, this is a horror podcast. I didn't expect those kind of things to be brought up.
Yeah, like when they slightly say like my husband and stuff like that, and you're like, ah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the way they do it in the Minus Archives is pretty good. And yeah, the main character is Ace. So if you're looking for some good representation, there you go.
I am on episode 13 and things that they just introduced a new person.
Yeah. Oh yeah, episode 13 is the first time you hear another person's voice on the podcast.
Mhm.
Yeah. It takes a while to get into it, but once it gets going, it gets really good.
All right. Awesome. Is there any kind of media that made you feel like, hey, we're moving in the right direction? Because I know I have some queer friends who are just like, oh my god, I love She-Ra, I love Owl House, I love things like that.
Yes. All of what you're saying right now. So, also for me, Steven Universe, She-Ra, yes. The Owl House, yes. There's the new show that just came out, Our Flag Means Death, yes. There's some books that I love. Cemetery Boys, amazing Latina representation, trans representation, gay. It's an amazing book. I have a lot of stuff, honestly. Like I could go on about like different things, but yeah. In terms of tabletop games, I think again Dimension 20 has been doing a really good job, and there are also like to some degree like Dungeons and Daddies as well. Those are two pretty good shows to check out.
Join the Party is also another one in case you need another D&D podcast. One of the main characters is non-binary.
Also coming together naturally.
Yeah, obviously coming together naturally. Obviously, we've got gender fluid characters, we've got non-binary characters, we've got bi characters. Yeah.
Hey man, if you just need a little bit of everything, it comes down to coming together naturally. Yeah. We got you. And if you don't also, see it,
Half-Blood Happy Hour. Yeah, it is. But Half-Blood Happy Hour as well, which is another podcast by some of our wonderful friends.
Tales from also has representation.
Yes. We love that. We love that about that. But yeah, I mean, in saying of like at the very beginning where you're like, I couldn't find that space, so I made it. I feel like with the podcast, I've like made a more conscious effort to be like make that material for other individuals that aren't just me, you know? It's not just, I want it to be inclusive as possible so I can, you know, tell more people's stories and be able to connect and understand others in a way that I haven't had before. And I think it's a very important, very, you know, fun time. I'm enjoying my time with our group of podcasters.
Yeah, no, I am like again with coming together naturally, where I don't feel like we put like a huge focus on it, but I think that's also good because it's just there are queer characters and they're just here being queer, but then they're also like that's not the main focus of the story, right? Which isn't a bad thing. But yeah, I think I'm very excited to see how it goes and to explore. I think we're going to be exploring more of the world in general as well. So we're going to probably meet a lot of new people.
I would like to pitch my idea that I had while watching the timeless classic Love is Blind on Netflix. I need a Love is Blind where genders don't matter.
Yes.
I need everybody to be in the booths together. And I want to see that. Yes. So Netflix, please make this happen.
All right, you listening, Netflix?
I'll take my check.
Yeah, no, that would be. I would actually watch that. I have not been watching Love is Blind, but that I would watch.
Honestly, season 2 is well worth the time and effort because you're like, it's trash. Like, I'm going to admit that one of Michael and I's favorite pastime is watching trashy TV. I love Survivor. I'm dying to be on dying to be on a season of Survivor. So if I go missing for 30 days, y'all know what happened. But watching I know it's editing, so I know part of it, but like watching them come together, I think would be much more fulfilling, especially in this day and age, because I'm tired of seeing like cisgendered men falling with cisgendered women, and like you've got all versions of the white woman showing up. Cool, great, I love it, but I'm tired of it, and I think throwing in a little queerness to it would be extra spicy, but maybe we also stay away from tropes of being queer, but like, you know, I watch the L Word too. I mean, I like my trash.
That's fair. I do also want to point out, you said like seeing if we're moving in the right direction. And I wanted to speak specifically because I'm from Norway. We haven't mentioned that yet, but yeah. I'm Norwegian. I'm from Norway.
Oh, yeah, Henry's Norwegian.
Accepted from wherever you were on this earth.
Yeah, and that was, I think, also part of the reason why I went like online, because especially where I live, there's not that many people, and most of the people here, they're white, cis, straight people, you know, and so that's what part of the reason why I had to like go online. But you also asked earlier, like, if there's stuff that makes me think we're going in the right direction. And there was actually a new comic, Norwegian comic, that's there's only 2 volumes so far, and I'm loving it. And it's by a queer artist who has written and illustrated the comic. And it's about queer elves. The main character uses the Norwegian gender-neutral pronoun, which is the first time I've seen that in any media. The pronouns that I use in Norwegian myself, like, actually being used. And I remember seeing this book, like, on an ad. I saw it on a Facebook ad. And this is the first time I've seen a Facebook ad, and I've been like, I'm buying this.
The algorithm.
Yeah, but like, it's the first time I actually bought something off of Facebook. Because I saw an ad, and it was through an actual bookshop that I know, like, it wasn't just some random stuff on Facebook, but like, still, it was through Facebook that I found it. And I remember reading the blurb, and they were using the gender neutral pronouns for the main character. And I actually started crying because I'm like, this is a story about elves, it's a story about dragons, it's a story about like magic and like all this fantasy that we also don't have a lot of within Norwegian media. A lot of it is just like mystery and like crime, is most of what we have from Norwegian creators. So seeing this, I was like, oh my god, we get more fantasy, but also it's like very queer. And it made me so happy.
What's the word?
The name of it translated is The Dragon's Eye. Mm-hmm. That's the name of the series. It's by Charlotte Sandman, I believe is her name. There you go. But yeah, I remember seeing that and like crying and being like, okay, we're going in the right direction here. Even in my own country, like, we're seeing more representation within our books and TV shows and everything.
I'm going to be honest, and I love language, and I love listening and thinking about how different cultures put their languages together. And it did not dawn on me until this very moment when you said it, how important it is to hear your gender pronouns in your native language, in the language that you have. Like, just, I would feel like it feels like a warm hug of like, somebody is using my heart language to identify me, and how magical that is. And so, you know, if you are making media, put those pronouns in people's languages. Oh, that's so magical. I'm so excited for you, Henry.
Thanks. Yeah, it was so cool because at that point I've seen, heard a lot of people using, they, them, and there have been a bit, like, there's been quite a few non-binary characters in the media who use they, them pronouns. Not enough, but we're getting there. We're seeing more and more, and we love that. But still, that was like a thing that I'm like, there's quite a bit of it out there. And I remember I had been looking for something in Norwegian, and there wasn't really anything. I also remember there were some like translations of stuff where they should have been using like gender neutral pronouns, and they just had avoided using pronouns. They just didn't use any. which really sucked. So seeing that it's now become a thing makes me very, very happy.
That's magic.
What are your pronouns in Norwegian? Like, what is that?
So fun story.
Okay.
My pronouns in Norwegian is hen. So
hen.
So the thing is, fun story. Let me just put this, because this is actually really funny. So my dead name actually starts with Henry, and then it's just a long. We don't need to get into it, basically. So then but they're like, that's too long. So some people are like, I'm gonna call you Henry, and I was like, perfect, we love it. And then some people were like, I'm just gonna call you Hen. And this was mainly when I was like with my English speaking friends after moving to the UK, because I was studying there. And so just so you know, like it was like English speaking people, they're like, I can't really pronounce your name. I don't know, like I'm just gonna call you Hen or Henry. And I was like, perfect, and I was like, you know, especially when people started calling me Hen, because I was like, that's the gender neutral pronoun. So that fit very well, because this happened before I came out. Then I remember when I came out, people were like, oh, can I still call you Hen? And I was like, absolutely. And then people back home started catching on to the fact that people were calling me Hen, and they were like very confused, because they're like, isn't that like the pronoun you want to be using? And I was like, yes, but so it's essentially turned into both my name but also my pronouns. But most people in Norway, they just call me like Henry and then use the hen pronoun instead of using hen as a name. So in Norwegian we have han, hun, and hen.
So I guess it was like a very very special moment when you saw it in media.
Yeah, it was really, really cool for me.
We do. You know what? We talk about D&D really affecting people's journeys, and I really want people to know that and stress that, like,
definitely
the things that you're doing are beneficial.
Mm-hmm. And once I found like safe spaces, like being able to explore using different pronouns through a different character, or like seeing just how that fits, or even names, trying names with different characters. It's such a cool way. And I've played with games with other queer people where they've been like, oh yeah, I'm gonna play a girl and I'm gonna use she, her, and I'm like, okay, I see you. And then like they'll come out later, and like it makes my heart really happy. People finding themselves and like having a space, like a safe space to explore these things that they're trying to figure out. And D&D can be like, honestly, it has saved people. Like I know D&D genuinely like saved my life at some, like it helped me fully like become who I am now. And that's why D&D is always gonna have such a big like place in my heart. But just tabletop games in general, 10 out of 10 way to explore. Like I said, if you have like a safe group, amazing ways to like have fun and explore identity.
Yeah, and not just gender and like just how your personality is and how words come out of your mouth, and the ability to be maybe an authority figure or be a little stronger than you normally are, even just to open yourself up to affection or love, or I currently play a character that's really reserved, and I am an oversharer myself. And so I'm now thinking about the way that I overshare, maybe creating boundaries in my day-to-day life, which is wild. But I have a safe space that I can, I would want to tell you that because I want you to know everything about me, but my character wouldn't do that. And so, I'm dealing with the stress of battling what my brain wants to do versus what is authentic to my character.
Yeah, no, I get that. Like, it's a good way to just explore personality too. This is very different to what you were describing, but we played like the Disney one shot, and I was playing like a Karen, which was so funny, and it was kind of cathartic for me. I've worked in customer service, I've dealt with a lot of Karens, and to be able to like bring that energy and like be the Karen for once. That was very, very fun for me.
I wish Karens understood that people that worked in customer service could out Karen them any day.
Oh yeah, I could out Karen you if I was allowed to. I could out Karen you any day.
You're coming for the wrong people, ma'am or sir.
For them.
For them.
Equal opportunity to have Karen and anybody,
yes.
okay?
Yeah, anybody can be a Karen.
Exactly.
Karen is a state of mind.
Yeah, it is.
What else, Adrian? What are you thinking?
Well, we're about to hit the hour mark. But I'd like to say that, or you know what? Let me just jog my brain real quick. Hold up. Oh, let's just do a real simple question. What was your first D&D D&D character? Oh, what does that mean, Hen?
Okay, the very first time I played D&D was, I barely remember, but it was, I think it was a human male paladin. I just remember it was a paladin, right? Because I remember being like, I was gonna be a man. I was like gonna be doing that. I'm like, I'm gonna be a strong man, and like I'm gonna have a cool ass sword, but also be able to do some magic. It's gonna be cool. I did not know how to play a paladin at all, and I realized very quickly at that table that people were frustrated at the fact that I didn't know how to play D&D. So that's also the thing. Honestly, if you are wanting to start getting into D&D, make sure like you're looking for groups that are going to be welcoming to people who don't know anything. Because unfortunately, a lot of groups are not, and I learned that the hard way. And that was also part of the reason why I was like, after that, I was like, yeah, no, this is not for me. This is too confusing. It's too much. I do not know anything about what I'm doing, and it was very overwhelming. And again, I had to watch like Dimension 20 and like other D&D shows to kind of learn how to play, if that makes sense. And like when I tried playing again myself, I had learned that like, oh, I know what these terms are. I know what this means. I recognize the name of these spells. I know what this does. And so if you're feeling overwhelmed to join a group, maybe watch people play some D&D and like learn that way. But also, yeah, make sure your group is actually welcome to beginners, because unfortunately not every group is.
Yep.
My actual first character that I played in a long-term campaign was a changeling bard, which was very, very fun.
I'm like, no, that's not our game.
No.
All right. So I think that the only experience I've personally had of having like a DM who wasn't very friendly was someone who was just like beating up on me because I was the new guy. Like, because they're allowed to beat up on you because they don't really know you. Like, mentally, that's what they say. And I'm like, hey, my character has a negative reaction. And it's like, why is your guy acting so hostile? And I'm like, yes, your characters are fucking with me. Like he's like, I don't get what's going on. And I'm like, you're being an asshole. So my character does not has literally no allies at this point, you know? So why would I be nice to you at this point? And they're like, you're being a problem. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
I mean, at the time I was just like, I'm just playing a character.
I think that's also why it's important to do a session 0 as well, like to make sure that, especially if you're going to be in like a longer campaign, you need to not only make sure that you as players and like people are, you know, vibing and having a good time together, but also that your characters can work well together to at least some extent. Like I know within our party and coming together naturally, there's tension, there's there's stuff, but we at least know that like we can work together and like we can make a story, and like obviously as players are happy to do that. But again, like it could not be like, there doesn't have to be like a specific reason necessarily, but you could just be like, this table, like this group of people, it just doesn't really work, and that's okay. Right. You should then try try a different table.
I would also just point out that first time that you guys come together as a group, the first time you play as a group is going to feel awkward.
Oh, yeah.
Like, first, second, third session may feel weird. It's going to feel like a first date. You're going to be like, I don't know where to put my hands. So if you are feeling a little extra nervous, everybody feels like that. Like, it's not going to fit in together perfectly the first time. It may, and that's great and wonderful, but the expectation shouldn't be like, oh my God, we're going to be great. This immediately first off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
Also, as a player who's gotten frustrated with somebody at my table because they didn't know the rules, I'm going to tell you the single rule that you need to know playing D&D, you have to roll the D20 for fucking checks. Because I have played a game with somebody for a fucking year and a half, and they were like, what do I roll? Bro, you roll the one fucking dice that we need to roll. The one fucking dice.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, as long as you have that part down, you're going to find a table that will accept you.
I mean,
because I'm accepting
also,
and I love you, but like,
my one rule that I say, the one rule in D&D that you have to know is that the whole point is that you're supposed to have fun. It's a game. You're supposed to have fun. You're supposed to have a good time. Even if your character isn't necessarily going through a good time. Like, but the point is, like, you're supposed to, like, this is something that you're doing because it's supposed to be, like, fun or, like, a hobby. Like, it's not meant to be something that you're dreading doing, you know?
Yeah.
So if you're having fun, if you're having fun, you're doing it right. If everybody at the table is having a great time, you did it. You won D&D.
You won it.
You won it.
Just be able to identify a D20 if you're going to sit at my table.
Fair.
I'll point it out to you. I'll make sure you know, but like,
and tape it to their hands.
I'm not. Look, and it's not like the D10. I understand D10, D12. We don't use those dice as many.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you don't know what a D20 is, I'll teach it to you 3 times. If you can't figure out what the fuck the D6 is, I'm gonna fight you because
the amount of times I've been like, roll a D6, and people have been kind of confused for a sec, and then I have to point out it's just a normal one, and they're like, oh shit, I'm dumb. But it's so funny every time they realize, like, oh, the D6 is just like the regular.
The one that's in your fucking Monopoly board, bro.
But it's just because they're not used to it.
Sorry, it doesn't have dots.
Yeah, but they're not used to it being called like a D6,
no.
right? But
no, and I under like.
But also, I was there. You know, I was that person that was like, wait, what's a D4? What's a D6? Like, you know, I've been there. So.
But you learned them.
Yeah.
And it didn't take a year and a half.
It did not take a year and a half. No.
I would line up their dice. I would line up their dice for them in order and be like, this is the one that you need.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I didn't do that, I knew I was going to get upset. Maybe that's it. I just babied him for too much. And then look, he would roll on his fucking phone. And then he was like, what do I need to roll? At this point, you're just putting it into your phone. The D20. You need to roll it. Anyways, I'll get off my tangent. I swear to God, I can't. Look at me. That's too much to not be able to identify which one you have to roll when you're making
You have to teach already. You're done teaching. You're a teacher.
I mean, this was in the past when I wasn't teaching shit. Like, it's which one you have to roll to attack. Okay, which one do I roll for attack?
Mm-hmm.
The big one.
I've seen so many comparisons like, oh, I have to treat my D&D party the way I treat my kindergartners. And I'm like, you know what? It's true. And then somebody was like, oh, you want to give your players like a puzzle? Just go to like try to find like a puzzle for like elementary school kids, or like something very basic, like something that would take a preschool. Like if you want a maze, go find something that a preschooler could do in like 10 minutes, and your players will take 2 hours.
Find the easy.
And I'm like, yes. Maze. And like as the DM, I'm like, this is very true. You have to treat them as kindergartners. And then also as a player, I'm like, yeah, you have to treat me as a kindergartner.
Hold my hand, please.
Hold my hand, yeah.
Can you tie
I know
my
you only
shoe?
have 2 and you have 5 of us, but hold my hand. All right. Henry, where can they find you?
People can find me across basically all platforms at Gen_Hen. That's GEN_HEN.
Find them on Twitch.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all the places. And then also, once again, coming together naturally.
No, I don't have to plug anything.
No, you don't. Thank you, dear listener, for joining us for another episode of Dungeons and Degrees. You can find us wherever pods are cast. Spotify now has the ability to rate podcasts. So if you're listening to us on Spotify, give us a 5-star. Anything less, and you will absolutely never be able to find your D20 again, and I will yell at you at the table. You can also find us on Patreon if you want to support us financially. We would love it so we can grow. We offer lots of different rewards, so go check us out on Patreon, and that's it. I don't have anything else. I don't know why I said and.
It is what it is. Yes. Well, my name's Adrian.
And I'm Alex.
And I'm Henry.
Go have some fun.
Boo-doo-boo-boo.